Nestled in the rolling hills of the Gers department in southwestern France is the picturesque village of La Romieu. The small village is right in the middle of the Via Podiensis, which is one of the major routes of the famous Camino de Santiago. This was a pilgrimage route to the town of Santiago de Compostela in Spanish Galicia, where the apostle St. James was supposedly buried. During the Middle Ages, it was one of the major pilgrimage routes to grant indulgence, only to be surpassed by the routes to Rome and Jerusalem. It continues to be used to this day, which marks the great importance of tourism in La Romieu. The village finds itself between the Gersois city of Condom and Agen, which is the capital of the Lot-et-Garonne department. La Romieu is also quite close to Astafort, which was the last town I covered. The foundation of the village essentially starts at the beginning of the pilgrim activity towards Santiago in the 9th century. It is thought that during this period, 2 monks formed a priory in the village. This is also confirmed by a charter in 1082 stating that the abbey was given to the Abbey of St. Victor of Marseille. The increasing conflict between the English and the French in the High Middle Ages ultimately affected the growth of La Romieu. With the destruction of the English Angevin Empire in the early 13th century, an agreement by the name of the Treaty of Abbeville was set forth to direct territorial claims of the two powers. In the treaty, the region of Agenais was given to the English, and as a result, La Romieu was formally included as an English possession. The English possession of La Romieu shaped its development to this day. In 1312, a native of the village named Cardinal Arnaud was able to acquire land to establish a collegiate. This is the origin of perhaps the village's most famous building, the Collegiate of St Peter of La Romieu. Only in 1453 did La Romieu return to French control. Now, in this same time period, Europe was starting to boost its trade with Asia, resulting in some unintended consequences like death and despair. By the mid-14th century, little pilot episodes of the Black Death started popping up all over Europe, sort of like a nightmare marathon of friends. And sadly, La Romieu got the short end of the stick. But thankfully, something happened that saved the town from biological obliteration. You see, in 1338, a guy named Vincent lived in La Romieu with his wife Marietta and daughter Angeline. To make the story very short, Vincent is killed by a tree and his wife goes into ultra-suicide mode. Their daughter Angeline is pretty much orphaned and sent to live with their neighbors. Whilst at their neighbors, Angeline gets a fondness of cats. And did I say fondness? I meant obsession. Anyway, from 1342 to 1344, there is a really bad harvest and famine consumes the whole village. The villagers starve, and in shame they begin to eat the village cats. At the same time, rats begin to pour into the village with those fresh new pilot episodes of bubonic plague. Death and despair engulfed La Romieu, with people dying in their droves. Luckily, our young protagonist, Angeline, hid her cats in her attic. She thus managed to convince the villagers to let her cats on a killing spree, thus eradicating the pestilence and risk of plague. La Romieu was saved. And now the village is essentially a refreshing pit stop for tired and weary travelers, sort of like in the Middle Ages. You can enter the beautiful cloister of the Collegiate of St. Peter for a very small sum of 5 to 10 euros. You can also find the legacy that Angeline left behind. The town has essentially become littered with cat statues. Cats over here, cats over there, cats, and more cats. There's also a great little bar where you can sit outside and relax from the heat of the southwestern sun. However, please be aware of the French eating schedule in order to avoid disappointment. I hope you enjoyed this nice and relaxing video of a small yet charming town full of bubonic plague, war, death, and a lot of cats.